exposed. The amazing moment a shivering girl at a bus stop discovered a hidden bond with a child. Emily's breath fogged in the air, a ghostly reminder of her own existence, as she hunched deeper into her oversized coat. The biting cold of the Midwestern winter seeped into her bones, infecting her thoughts with a familiar numbness. She glanced down the street, the bus stop sign creaking in the relentless wind, echoing the void that had consumed her family since her father left. Memories of their laughter felt like a cruel joke. Now, silence echoed through their once vibrant home. In that bleak moment, she felt utterly alone, abandoned in a world that had swiftly turned frigid. Her heart twisted painfully as the thought of her father crossed her mind again. Could she even remember the sound of his voice? Was this numbness a shield or a prison? Just then, she caught sight of a boy, Max, sitting nearby, his face an open book of uncertainty and hope. Their eyes locked, and a tremor of recognition passed between them, two souls seeking warmth amid the chill of their lives. The walls of her isolation began to crack as she hesitated, torn between her instinct to retreat and the desperate urge to connect. "Hey," she called out, her voice wavering against the wind, "what's in your backpack?" Max looked surprised but slowly opened up, revealing the weight of his own struggles. "My mom lost her job. We're just trying to get by." His honesty hit Emily like a wave, washing away the sharp edges of her loneliness. As he spoke, she felt an unsettling kinship arise, a magnetic pull between the raw pain in his voice and her own scars. They were both battling a world that seemed determined to grind them down. Her heart fluttered with the realization that despite their different lives, their feelings intertwined in a shared struggle. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Days passed, and what began as an accidental encounter blossomed into an unwavering friendship that both frightened and exhilarated Emily. Each tutoring session with Max sent surprising sparks of confidence through her, igniting hidden potential she never knew resided in her. He depended on her, and in a way, she depended on him too. It became a lifeline, a bright thread weaving her towards a better future. But the joy those moments brought was brittle, cracking under the thinning ice of her father's unexpected return. When he showed up at the door, the floodgates of her emotions opened violently. Familiar feelings of confusion and resentment surged, drowning out the flickers of hope she'd begun to cultivate with Max. The internal conflict exploded. Could she rebuild what was broken, or was she allowed to embrace the new family she was forging in the shadows of despair? As harsh words flew back and forth, Emily felt the weight of her identity crushing around her. Torn between the love that had once defined her and the desire for something better, she stood at a crossroads, an ache of uncertainty clawing at her heart, leaving her with an unsettling question: which path would she ultimately choose? The return of her father was like a thunderstorm breaking over a fragile landscape. Emily paced the dimly lit hallway, each step echoing her tumultuous thoughts. She felt raw, exposed, like the deepest parts of herself were extracted and laid bare for scrutiny. Could she accept the man who had walked away, who had become a memory filled with bitterness? In those endless minutes, doubt washed through her, drowning the newfound sense of purpose that had begun to take root. Each encounter with Max, the laughter they shared between lessons, and the quiet moments where unspoken comfort passed between them, was it all worth the shadow her father cast over her burgeoning identity? Would returning to the familiar make her forget the strength she felt with Max by her side? She closed her eyes, trying to isolate the clarity of her bond with Max, the solace it provided in this storm of familial chaos. Did her father even realize that his absence had carved out a space for someone else to step in? Maybe it was a delayed reckoning, a revelation she needed to confront within herself. The night deepened as she sat in her room, replaying the myriad of conversations with Max in her head. They weren't just discussions about school, they were footsteps taken together along the path toward healing. She was beginning to see herself achieved through the lens of another's admiration, a growth spurred by shared vulnerabilities. Suddenly, she seized her notebook, the pages cluttered with half-formed thoughts and doodles representing her chaotic mind. At the top of a fresh page, she scrawled, "What do I truly want?" Capturing that question embodied a drastic shift for her, a personal battle cry demanding resolution. A sudden urge surged within her. With trembling hands, she penned her thoughts, detailing the fear of disappointment that clung to her as tightly as her coat. The distant sound of laughter from the street outside punctuated her writing, reminding her of Max and the warmth he had brought into her freezing existence. That warmth drew her toward confrontation, not just with her father, but with herself. What if Max's world and her past collided? She couldn't allow old wounds to dictate her choices, yet reconciling her father's role loomed over her like a specter. She wished she could shield Max from the chaos, but could she continue sharing her life while untangling her own? With determination surging within her, she made a decision. It was time to confront her father, to express her frustrations, and to establish new boundaries. She would either reclaim the fragmented pieces of her past or redefine her future based on the bonds she cherished, unfettered by past betrayals. Emily set her jaw, her resolve hardening like steel. Every confrontation had the potential to reshape her. You could almost see the possibilities weaving through her mind like threads of light in the darkness. As she stood, ready to face whatever conversation awaited her, a surge of doubt prickled at her spine. What would it mean if she discounted her father's presence completely? There was no easy answer, but whatever lay ahead, it seemed inevitable now. The time had arrived for hard truths to emerge. She opened the door to the living room. The light flickered as her heart raced. This was a pivotal moment. The air between her and her father's unspoken past hung heavily. Emily's voice trembled slightly as she took a step forward. "We need to talk." But just as she spoke, the phone rang. The sound pierced through the fragile tension in the room, eliciting a ripple of uncertainty. Emily hesitated, caught in a moment of suspension, aware that whatever was on the other end could change everything again. Emily's heart hammered in her chest as the phone's insistent ring shattered the tense atmosphere. She glanced at her father, whose expression mirrored her own, confusion tinged with a flicker of irritation. This was not how she had envisioned their conversation. "Are you going to answer that?" he asked, his voice a strange blend of curiosity and impatience. She contemplated ignoring it, letting it go to voicemail as she braced herself for the confrontation she'd long avoided. But something about the urgency gnawed at her. The echoes of unspoken words filled the air, and she felt a magnetic pull toward clarity, both for herself and for her father. With a reluctant shrug, she picked up the phone and brought it to her ear, still holding her father's gaze. "Hello? Emily?" The voice on the other end was unfamiliar yet somehow comforting, a soft, melodic tone that instantly put her on edge. "Yes? It's me, Annie, my sister's friend," the caller continued. "I know it's a bit unexpected, but I have this piece of news that I think you should hear." As Annie explained a recent situation involving her sister and some troubling behavior at school, Emily's mind raced. The connection to Max passed through her thoughts like lightning. She had shared her vulnerabilities with him, yet here was another opportunity to connect with someone informed by friendship rather than the fears that weighed her down. "I'm glad you called," Emily found herself saying. "I was just about to talk to my dad about some things involving my life. I appreciate you reaching out." The conversation flowed naturally, infused with the promise of solidarity. The more they discussed Annie's insights and her sister's struggles, the more Emily felt the burdens mounting in her chest begin to dissipate. After hanging up, she turned to her father, whose brows knitted in confusion. "What was that about?" he asked, the previous irritation now replaced with a hint of curiosity. "Just a friend," she replied, her tone surprisingly light. "Things at school are a mess right now, and she thought I should know." He nodded, a flicker of understanding crossing his face. Emily tapped into this moment. It could be the bridge she needed to propel their conversation. "Dad, I wanted to tell you that your return, it feels complicated. I don't want to push you away, but I also can't pretend that the past doesn't affect me. I don't want my life to be a pendulum swinging between you and Max. Her father stared at her, and for the first time, she noticed the vulnerability there. I never wanted to hurt you, he said, his voice almost a whisper, the weight of lost time hanging in the air. I was scared. In that moment, Emily recognized a flicker of hope. Maybe within their chaotic past lay a tender possibility for a future. It's okay to be scared. I am too. But if we're going to move forward, we both have to be honest. We have to confront the hurt and redefine what we want. The silence stretched between them like a taut ribbon, confidence silently coursing through the space where anger and bitterness once existed. This was not a healing road paved with easy words, but rather one that required their mutual vulnerability, a path they'd have to navigate together. As determination coalesced within her, she felt the steady pulse of growing resolve. Could she truly build a new foundation, one that included both her father and Max without spilling into the realm of chaotic emotional implosion? The answer loomed ahead, vague yet inviting. Can we try? She asked, a tentative hope laced through her voice. Her father nodded, something in his expression shifting. He was willing to confront his demons if she was prepared to face hers. In their tentative alliance, a glimmer of reform sparkled amid the wreckage of their past. The phone once again rang, rupturing the fragile bubble of newfound understanding. This time, Emily was drawn back to the reality that lay beyond their moment of connection. Who could that be? She wondered aloud, a trepidation coursing through her once more. Was she truly ready for whatever came next, or was she standing on the precipice of a far greater storm? As she reached for the phone again, the only answer she had was uncertainty. Emily felt the fluttering in her chest still as she answered the phone. It was as if the world outside paused for a moment, all the noise receding into the background. Hello? She managed, a shaky breath escaping her lips as she braced herself for whatever news awaited her. Emily, it's Max, came the familiar voice, solid yet fragile. Just hearing his name ignited a whirlwind of emotions. Memories of laughter, support, and vulnerability danced in her mind, intertwined with the darker shadows of her doubts and fears. Hey, she replied, trying to project calmness that she didn't quite feel. What's up? Can we meet? There's a lot we need to talk about. His tone carried an urgency that made her pulse quicken. I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything. Something inside her shifted. This conversation felt inevitable, yet daunting. So many times she had held back her true feelings, allowing layers of misunderstanding to build walls between them. Sure. Where? Emily felt her throat tighten, anticipating the confrontation but also a sense of liberation. Maybe this was the moment they could unravel the complexities that had cemented their bond in confusion. Max suggested a small coffee shop that had become their unofficial meeting place in the past. The 10 minutes it took for her to get there seemed to stretch into an eternity. As she walked, her mind raced. Would he confront her about how she pushed him away? Would she have the capacity to hear his truths and share her own? Arriving at the coffee shop, she spotted Max seated in a corner. The anxious vibes radiated from him were unmistakable. His brow furrowed as he glanced up, their eyes locking in a moment that seemed to convey unspoken words, worries and hopes tied into a single gaze. Hey, she said softly, settling down across from him. She studied his expression, hoping to decode his mindset. Thanks for coming, he began, pain flaring in his voice. I've been avoiding this conversation because I didn't know how to say it, but I feel like you've been pulling away. Did something happen? Emily took a deep breath, wrestling with her own conflicted feelings. This was her opportunity. She had to confront the fears that had constrained her from being vulnerable. It's more complicated than that. I've had a lot going on with my dad, and I let that chaos seep into everything else. I thought I needed space, but in reality, I was just scared. Max leaned back, absorbing her words. I'm scared too, Emily. Scared of losing you, scared of not being good enough to be there for you when you need someone. His honesty pierced through her defenses, unearthing a raw vulnerability she hadn't encountered before. Each moment contained an unspoken truth that rattled her to her core. But, he continued, I don't want to be that reason. I want to be part of your life, but you have to let me in. His voice was thick with sincerity, longing for connection, yet cautious of crossing boundaries that had been carefully erected. Could she do that? The tug-of-war in her heart raged. Inviting him back in meant she had to confront her past and all the jagged edges it held. Max, I want that too, she admitted, the weight of her confession hanging. The fracture in her walls felt both alarming and exhilarating. For the first time, she began to grasp the power of vulnerability, what it could mean to accept someone entirely, or to risk everything for connection. Yet, lingering questions clouded her mind. Could she balance her complex relationship with her father and still embrace what stood before her with Max? As they talked, thoughts collided with possibilities, new layers unfolding not only between them but within herself. Would she be able to navigate this emotional landscape without losing herself entirely? A moment of silence settled between them, one that spoke volumes. Emily opened her mouth to break the tension on her heart, to shape the clarity she so desperately needed. Before she could voice anything, her phone buzzed again, fracturing the moment and pulling her focus. Was this a sign that her tumultuous path was far from over? She glanced down, dread tinged with hope swelling within her. What awaited her now? Could she truly embrace the connections she was beginning to forge, or would they shatter under the weight of her insecurities? Emily's heart raced as she glanced down at her phone. The screen illuminated a name that stole her breath, Dad. Despite knowing he would call, the emotions tied to that name could still sweep her off her feet. She hesitated before swiping to answer, the conversation with Max hanging in the air like fog. Emily? Is that you? The thinness in her father's voice mirrored the years of separation and the heaviness of unresolved issues. Yeah, Dad. It's me, she replied, forcing resolve into her tone. Can we talk? It's important, he pressed, the crunch of gravel in the background suggesting he was walking, perhaps away from something or towards something unknown. For a fleeting moment, she sensed an urgency that felt starkly out of character for him. Sure, Emily said, feeling the weight of her earlier conversation with Max still echoing in her mind. Where do you want to meet? A familiar diner came to his mind, one that had once held laughter and familiar warmth but now loomed like a reminder of all that had gone unspoken. I'll be there in 30 minutes, he said before hanging up, leaving Emily a swirl of thoughts and impending confrontations. The drive felt endless, each turn making her question her impending decisions. As she approached the diner, anxiety mixed with anticipation. What would she reveal? Would she confront him about the years of absence? Would she seek to understand him for the first time? Upon entering, she noticed him sitting at their usual booth, the green vinyl worn and cracked, the same place where happiness had turned into silence. He looked older, weariness etched into each line on his face, making her heart stir. As she slid into the booth across from him, his expression was solemn yet vulnerable, as if he had let his guard down. Emily, I know I haven't been the kind of father you needed, he began without preamble. His admission felt like the unearthing of a long-buried truth. I've struggled, and I haven't handled it well. Her breath hitched. The clarity in his voice reminded her of her own revelations with Max. Dad, you can't just say that and expect everything to be okay. Why did you leave? Why didn't you reach out? His eyes fell, and the silence wrapped around them. I thought I was doing what was best for you, keeping distance to let you find your path. I was wrong. I realize that now. No, you didn't support me when I needed you the most. Her voice cracked under the weight of all the hurt, but before she could restrain herself, something shifted. She could either remain marred by those experiences or recognize them as personal growth moments both for her and for him. An uncomfortable lightness filled the air as she wrestled with her emotions, balancing anger with understanding. I do want to hear what you have to say, but understand I'm not the child you left behind. I've changed, Dad. I'm learning to stand on my own, and I can't keep waiting for you to be there. I want to be there, he said earnestly, his expression pleading. I want a second chance. For the first time, Emily realized she held power in this situation. She had every right to set boundaries. Then show it. It starts with honesty. As they talked, a discovery fluttered in her heart. Each painful word was a step toward liberation, both for her and her father. She understood her capacity for compassion, particularly towards someone whose past she deeply resented. But even as she navigated this unexpected territory, a new realization emerged. Could she allow herself the vulnerability she desired with Max after such a conversation? A mixture of fear and hope intertwined, leaving her contemplative. Just as clarity started to settle, her phone buzzed again, a different name flashing, this time her boss. The prospect of professional confrontation loomed ahead, demanding her attention. What awaited her in that call? Would it push her further into her emerging autonomy or threaten it? The delicate web of personal connections and professional responsibilities tightened around her. She was about to step into a storm that might finally test her newfound strength. Emily's hand trembled as she glanced at the screen again, willing herself to breathe deeply. She felt a knot tighten in her stomach, wrestling with the unresolved feelings from her conversation with her father. Taking a moment of silence, she steeled herself before answering the call, determined to approach the situation with the same bravery she had just shown him. "Emily, I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time," her boss's voice crackled through the line, sounding brisk and formal. There was no small talk, just the weighty expectancy of an impending announcement. "No, it's fine," Emily responded, her voice steadier than she felt. "What's going on?" "I wanted to discuss your proposal on the client campaign. It requires some immediate adjustments. We need to brainstorm new ideas, and I'd like you to take the lead," he said, urgency creeping into his tone. "Can you come into the office today?" Emily's heart thudded. This was an opportunity that could either solidify her position or expose her vulnerabilities. She felt the simmering tension of self-doubt creep back in. "Today? Sure, I can be there in an hour." As she hung up, her mind raced. Could she handle leading this project on her own? She wondered if her boss's confidence in her was misplaced, echoing the insecurities she'd felt for so many years. But the conversation with her father had ignited something in her, a flicker of possibility that she could finally step out of the shadows. Arriving at the office, Emily was greeted by the bustling energy of her coworkers. Uncertainty tangled with anticipation as she made her way to the conference room. She had been here before, where ideas flowed freely, yet this time felt different. Her pulse quickened with a resolve to embrace her burgeoning autonomy. She entered the room and immediately felt scrutinized. Her colleagues exchanged glances, as if her role had shifted, an unspoken consensus that she was now in charge of steering this project. Gathering her thoughts, she arranged the materials in front of her, trying to project a calm confidence. "Okay, everyone, let's dive in," Emily started, her pulse racing faster than her words. As she outlined her vision for the campaign, she noticed a mix of expressions from her team. Some were supportive, others skeptical. The balance between excitement and fear pulsed within her, each comment and critique a reverberation of her internal struggles. When a coworker raised concerns about her proposed ideas, Emily felt the compulsion to retreat, to dampen her own voice in the midst of uncertainty. However, a thought from her earlier conversations with her father struck her. Growth required standing her ground, even when faced with opposition. "I appreciate your feedback," she said, maintaining eye contact as she caught her breath. "But I believe this direction could truly resonate with our audience. Let us explore it further." The words hung in the air, weighty and resolute. For the first time, she felt a surge of empowerment coursing through her, a stark contrast from the feelings of isolation she had endured. The meeting progressed, and Emily navigated her role with a newfound tenacity, advocating for her ideas while welcoming criticism, turning moments of doubt into opportunities for collaboration. As the team began to gather momentum and enthusiasm around her vision, she realized she was no longer just a participant in her professional life. She was actively shaping its trajectory. Yet, as the meeting wrapped up and her colleagues left the room, a lingering question echoed in her mind. Would she have the courage to approach Max now, to build on the budding connection between them despite the complexities of her past? The thought of opening herself to him felt daunting, yet the need for clarity loomed large. Just then, her phone buzzed again, a message from Max lighting up the screen. A simple question. "Could we talk later?" Emily's heart raced. Was she ready to confront the emotions that lingered between them, to explore a connection that could strip away her protective layers? The momentum she had gained in the meeting pulsed through her veins, igniting an unfamiliar sense of hope. What would she say? Would she find the vulnerability to share her newfound sense of self with him, or would she retreat into the shadows, fearing another confrontation? The stakes had never felt higher, and this time, there would be no turning back. Emily stared at her phone, her mind racing through a storm of questions as her fingers hovered over the screen. What did Max want to discuss? Was he aware of the tension that hung heavily between them, or was this just a casual conversation seeking clarity? She couldn't help but feel both apprehensive and energized. Deciding there was no point in prolonging the inevitable, she typed a quick response, suggesting a coffee at their favorite cafe after work. "Sure, how about 5 p.m.? She sent, her heartbeat drumming in her ears. The ringing anticipation of possibility mixed with fear. She wondered what lay behind those seemingly innocuous words, if he could sense the transformation that was taking place within her. The rest of the day at the office passed in a blur of activity, as Emily purposely threw herself into her work revising her campaign proposal, engaging her team, and ensuring that each detail was aligned. The confidence she had summoned earlier felt fragile. It needed nurturing, lest it shatter under the weight of her old patterns of self-doubt. Her mind steered between the hopeful whispers and the nagging shadows of insecurity. What if I am just masquerading as a leader? She questioned herself. Yet, as she facilitated discussions, offering clarity while welcoming ideas, she unearthed small fragments of belief that had usually been overrun by self-criticism. Brushing aside her doubts, she caught glimpses of potential not just in her work, but in her personal life as well. "Emily, you're capable," she reminded herself as she walked through the office, feeling the warmth of her colleagues' support and engagement. With each positive affirmation, she chipped away at the walls that had confined her for far too long. At last, the clock struck 5, and a sense of determination dominated her thoughts as she walked to the cafe. It was time to confront the raw emotions that had been festering under the surface. Would she finally open up about her past, her fears? In what felt like a tightrope walk over chasms of vulnerability, she hoped to keep her balance and expose herself authentically. Max was already there, his casual demeanor almost comforting, but the unspoken tension loomed larger than ever. Emily took a deep breath and slid into the seat opposite him. He regarded her with a mix of eagerness and curiosity, a spark of warmth shining in his eyes. "Hey," he said, his voice steady yet inviting. "Thanks for meeting me." "Of course," she managed, her own heart betraying her calm facade. Silence stretched between them, heavy with expectations. She had to push past the initial hesitation, make a leap of faith. "So, what did you want to talk about?" He paused, considering his words. "I've been thinking about us," he finally admitted. "I sense something between us, and I'd like to explore it more." Emily's breath caught. The moment froze, as if time had decided to steal this brief window and suspend it. Should she reciprocate, risking rejection, or shield herself with uncertainty? A sudden wave of nostalgia tugged at her deeply buried fears. She nearly succumbed to retreat when a flicker of boldness surged through her. "I'd like that too," she said, leaning forward, her voice steadier than she felt. But with that admission arose new questions. Could she harmonize her professional journey with the complexities of her emotional landscape? As they exchanged smiles charged with unspoken promises, Emily realized a shift occurring within her, a capacity to merge her personal and professional selves into a cohesive identity. However, the clock on the wall ticked louder now, as decision time approached. Would she allow herself to delve deeper, or erect defenses that had kept her safe but alone? The moment sat on a knife's edge, every heartbeat echoing the weight of her choice. Then came a soft vibration from her phone, pulling her from the intensity of the moment. It was a notification alerting her to an unexpected email concerning a promotion at work, something she had never considered pursuing. Could this unexpected opportunity send her spiraling back into doubt, or was this another pivotal moment in her transformation? Something within Emily stirred, the desire to leap into the unknown. She could feel it, she was on the precipice of something life-changing. What she didn't know was how intertwined her choices in both her personal and professional worlds truly were, and how the next decision could alter the course of her life entirely. Emily's gaze flicked between Max and her phone, the email still buzzing for her attention. The juxtaposition weighed heavily. Romance blossoming across from her invoked both hope and fear, while the career opportunity on her screen threatened to distract her from the delicate moment she was currently navigating. "Is everything okay?" Max asked, his brow furrowing slightly when he sensed her distraction. "Yes," she replied, forcing a smile. But the truth was, her mind was racing. Could she actually pursue this promotion? Was it even feasible to take on more responsibility while exploring a budding relationship with Max? Both options carried the weight of uncertainty, and yet both felt like avenues toward growth. Setting her phone aside, she steeled herself. This was not just about the potential for career advancement or romantic connection. It was about claiming a more assertive version of herself, one that could embrace both opportunities without fear. "What were you saying?" She tilted her head slightly, signaling her willingness to engage fully in this conversation. Max met her gaze, and she noticed the intensity in his expression. "I want to know what you're feeling about us." "I don't want to rush anything," but his voice trailed off, and he looked down at his coffee cup, unsure of how to proceed. "Look, I admire your honesty," she encouraged him, her heart racing anew at the prospect of vulnerability. Sharing her feelings was an uncharted territory, much like the idea of stepping into a leadership role at work. "I'm just in a phase of reevaluating a lot in my life right now. I want to make sure I'm ready for whatever it is we're discussing." His eyes brightened, as though her openness ignited a spark of relief within him. "I understand that. I guess what I'm hearing is that you're hesitant about what we could be." A whirlwind of thoughts surged through her. His understanding neither pressed her away nor tempted her to retreat. Instead, it highlighted another layer of uncertainty within herself. Could she give herself fully, both in relationships and work, or would the fear of failing at either hold her hostage? Feeling a heaviness settle back in her stomach, she realized that this moment was a microcosm of her larger life. It wasn't merely about Max or the promotion. It was about embracing all parts of herself, stripping away the armor she'd worn for too long. "I think," she began, deliberate with her words, "what I'm really afraid of is how to balance all of this. Emotions can be demanding, and so can work. There's so much at stake for me, you know?" Max nodded, his expression softer now, more attentive. "And that's okay. We're both figuring it out. But I believe you have so much potential, and I believe in us," he said simply. A flicker of warmth ignited her heart. She was resilient, skilled, and undeniably capable of reshaping her narrative. Could she pivot her career without sacrificing emotional depth? The realization dawned within her. Choosing to pursue this promotion could embody the very transformation she sought. Choosing to explore this relationship with Max could blossom into something extraordinary. Yet, as she opened her mouth to voice her intentions, her phone vibrated on the table again, pulling her attention once more. This time, the email she saw was a video link from her mentor, who had offered to discuss her thoughts on the same promotion. A whirlwind of choices loomed ahead, a dual path where both routes could lead to profound change. Mustering her courage, Emily decided to reveal her ambition. "Max, I got an email about a promotion today." His eyes lit up, but she could sense the hesitation in his next words. "Is that something you want?" The air crackled with anticipation, a blend of fear and excitement. In this pivotal moment, she felt the bright scaffolding of her ambitions and desires intertwined. Yet, as she contemplated her response, another question bubbled beneath the surface. Could pursuing this path mean reshaping her relationship with Max in ways she couldn't anticipate? The clock in the cafe ticked steadily, a reminder that the moment for decisions was fleeting. What would she choose first, her burgeoning career or her tentative yet promising relationship? As they sat together, Emily felt the ground shift beneath her. What would she ultimately decide to pursue? Emily's heart pounded as she lost herself in the weight of that moment. Max's expression lay suspended between hope and concern, and she could feel the shimmer of expectations clinging to the air around them. To speak would mean committing to a path laden with uncertainty. She had always been the responsible one, meticulously weighing risks, yet here she was, faced with two profound choices that tugged at her identity. For so long, she'd neatly compartmentalized her life into segments: work and personal feelings, ambitions, and relationships. The thought of blending the two felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Would stepping into a leadership role at work mean she'd have to compromise the vulnerability she was allowing herself to explore with Max? The bustle of the cafe faded as she focused on Max's gaze. It was steady, inviting her to share her truth, but Emily wrestled with uncertainty. She imagined the email layout in her mind. The promotion was a beacon, projecting professionalism and authority, while Max represented the risk of vulnerability, connection, and intimacy. What if pursuing one meant sacrificing the other? Max, she started, her voice steady yet soft, I want to dive into this promotion. It's everything I've worked for, but she paused, searching for words that would encapsulate this whirlwind of feelings. I'm worried about losing touch with what's nurturing, what's real. A flicker of understanding crossed over Max's features. That makes sense. It sounds like both are important to you, he replied, his tone gentle yet firm. But what if you could integrate both? They don't have to be mutually exclusive. His words struck a chord. The idea of blending her ambition with this new emotional journey intrigued her. Emily realized that instead of viewing Max and her career as competing forces, she could see them as complementary elements that together could lead to her growth. But how do I balance that? She questioned, her voice barely above a whisper, battling the fear and self-doubt roiling beneath her surface. What if I fail to meet the expectations in either? Have you considered that failure might be a necessary step to growth? A chance for learning? Max shifted in his seat, leaning closer, a glimmer of encouragement in his eyes. If you don't take the chance, if you hold back out of fear, you might miss out on both opportunities. His words resonated with Emily, igniting a recognition deep within. She had always been her harshest critic, often doubting her capabilities in the face of challengers. But the path toward leadership at work required audacity, a willingness to embrace the storm that came with vulnerability, ambition, and the occasional chance of humiliation. I think I've been waiting for this perfect moment where everything aligns, but maybe I'm meant to create that moment instead, she reflected, her mind buzzing with newfound clarity. Max smiled, a knowing warmth emanating in response. You are incredibly capable, Emily. You have a voice that needs to be heard. Both in the office and here. Feeling emboldened, she clasped her coffee cup tightly. The realization crystallized. Her journey toward professional excellence could enhance her relationship with Max rather than detract from it. By chasing her ambitions, she could inspire him and herself, creating a partnership that thrived on authenticity. However, the tension of decision still loomed, pressing against her like an unyielding weight. As confidence crept in, a flicker of apprehension persisted, a nagging question. Could yielding to this merge of personal and professional goals lead to unexpected complications in her relationship? Max, you and I are just beginning, and I want to be open with you, she admitted, not entirely sure how this next revelation would land. But I must be honest, I'm scared of how a shift like this could affect what we're building together. Max nodded thoughtfully, his expression serious. We should always be honest. That's the foundation of any partnership. Whatever challenges comes our way, we can face them together. As fatigue mingled with resolve coursed through her, Emily realized that risking exposure, both at work and in her heart, would shape her more than she ever anticipated. The ground beneath her felt a little firmer, but with that clarity also came the realization that facing these changes might shake the very foundation she was trying to build. With newfound spontaneity, as uncertainty twisted into anticipation, Emily took a deep breath, ready to chart her course. What if, by embracing both her ambitions and her emotions, she discovered that each step forward opened up entirely new vistas? But before she could voice that leap of faith, her phone buzzed again, announcing an incoming message. This time, it was from her mentor, inviting her to discuss her ambitions, but the urgency hinted at something more. Her heart raced and her instincts flared as she met Max's gaze once again. What hidden truths might she uncover in this pivotal conversation, And how would they impact not only her career but also her evolving relationship with Max? Emily stood at a crossroads between her past and an uncertain future. After weeks of navigating turbulent emotions, she felt a grounded conviction coursing through her veins. Max had urged her to accept the possibility of vulnerability, not just with him but within herself, something she had resisted for far too long. Now, she felt equipped to face the complexities that lay ahead. In her mind's eye, she envisioned a different narrative, a life where ambition danced alongside connection. With each revelation about her potential, the realization that her worth didn't hinge on past mistakes became clearer. Emily would not just pursue the promotion she had initially grappled with, she would also nurture her relationship with Max. Both aspects formed the fabric of her identity, interwoven in a tapestry of resilience and growth. Her next steps crystallized as she took a deep breath, recalling the professional aspirations she had often shelved during moments of self-doubt. She needed to show up not only for her career but also in her relationship with Max. She refocused on their conversation, channeling that determination into words. "Max," she began, her voice steady, "I'm ready to embrace this project at work. I want to lead the campaign, and I believe it can help foster my growth both as a professional and as a person. I'm shifted now, and I'd love for you to be part of this journey." His eyes sparkled with admiration. "Emily, that's incredible. I'm behind you 100. You're going to thrive." Each compliment he offered filled her with a fiery confidence. Not only was she stepping into her potential, but she also had someone supporting her who genuinely believed in her abilities. In that moment, the shadows of isolation began to fade. She recognized that she could cultivate her aspirations without sacrificing her emotional landscape. With clarity came action. As she reached into her bag, her phone buzzed again. An email alert. Her mentor wanted to meet. It felt like the universe was conspiring to fuel her awakening. Emily smiled at Max with determination. "I need to go meet my mentor about that promotion. But can we get together later to celebrate?" He nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely. You deserve to celebrate every victory, big or small." As she walked away from the cafe, anticipation thrummed in her chest. She could feel the weight of her past lifting. Surrounding herself with a supportive network propelled her towards recognizing her worth. She had traversed the valleys of despair and confusion, but now paved ahead lay a landscape of opportunity ripe for exploration. The discussion with her mentor was fruitful and invigorating. They spoke of her ideas, her passion for leadership, and strategies to navigate the challenges tied to her new role. The moment her mentor looked her in the eye and recognized her potential crystallized for her a transformation. No longer would she defer her aspirations, she would seize them. With each word, she felt layers of self-doubt unravel, and a new identity emerged, an empowered, ambitious version of herself that knew she could exist as both a leader at work and a blossoming partner to Max. The increased clarity in her professional identity empowered her to define her personal relationships openly. Later that evening, she met with Max, feeling buoyed by her accomplishments. As they shared laughs and stories over dessert, it became clear to Emily that vulnerability bore no shame, only strength when met with authenticity. "Max, you helped me realize I can stand tall on my own," she confessed, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. "I want the promotion, a relationship that challenges me to grow." As he took her hand, she knew she was ready for what lay ahead. Emily had demonstrated remarkable growth, embracing both her personal and professional aspirations while nurturing genuine connections along the way. Their relationship deepened, and with it, her self-acceptance flourished. That night, as she settled into bed, the warmth of contentment enveloped her. Emily closed her eyes with a smile, feeling the undeniable blend of excitement and realization that she was exactly where she needed to be, on the cusp of countless new opportunities, fueled by the impossible journey of loving herself and those who believed in her. The transformative journey was only beginning. If you found inspiration in Emily's journey, you need to subscribe now to this channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let us know you appreciate these narratives. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion, and comment below your reactions and theories about the ending.